On the Mic podcast, and we're not doing, well, he is an athlete, but we are not doing any MMA interviews right now, although he probably is trained in martial arts and some sort of martial arts. As you guys know, I use this channel not only to talk to some of my favorite athletes, but also to some of my favorite people in the world. And a lot of that may stem from the TV side of things or the real world side of things. And this man is both. He's got the best smile in TV. He is the man behind Ivory Tower, and
Yeah,
catch him on Patrol Live. He's the one and only Captain Tom Rizzo. Sir, how are you?
yeah, man, I'm doing great. So nice to meet you, and I'm honored. I appreciate that introduction. But I appreciate, it's funny. People say all the time, "Oh, there's no way they smile and this and that." And if they only knew kind of what's behind the smile, sometimes what it got to get me here. So, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You reached out, and you have no idea how much that touches my heart. So I apologize about my schedule chaos. Here he is. We have an appointment ready to go, and then there it is. I'm running off to a walk-in from my daughter. So yeah, man, I appreciate it.
It's all good. It's honestly it's an honor. Just I'll just jump right into it. Here we are in 2024, and with social media and the media, everyone's given a specific narrative to
Yeah.
whether it be law enforcement, first responders, whatever. There's a narrative that sometimes is absolutely disgusting, but most of the time it's just misunderstood.
Yep.
Having having now been on the TV side of things where you're open for criticism 24/7, even though you're doing a live documentary show. How
Yeah.
have you been able to balance yourself as someone who serves as law enforcement, but then is also now in front of the TV camera?
So great question. I'm very blessed and humbled that I've been to now 46 states. I wrote a book a few years back, and I teach a leadership course that I put together. So that's where the Ivory Tower thing comes from. So being in front of audiences and that type of stuff wasn't a new thing for me. What was new was I had no idea on how much goes into a production of a show per se. And then you get so I guess worked up and tense and stressed about, I just hope that I relay myself the right way. And what I mean by that is not to get blind acceptance from everybody, but you just hope that people see you for what you want to be seen as, right? And see that your passion comes through and your purpose. So when people throw stones, it's all good. I mean, there's not much meat to left to pick off the bone with me. I've been through that side of the house. But for me, I have such an appreciation for what a production is and what goes into it, that, man, it's changed the game for me tremendously. That's for sure.
Well, because of being on TV, you're obviously, like I said, opened up to a much bigger audience.
Yeah.
For someone like yourself, I mean, we got connected through social media, so I'm
Yeah.
grateful for social media, right? But how do you not kind of give in to the kind of BS narratives that are out there, whether it's the departments that, people may be commenting on something that happened on the show, or there may be a big time event, which we will talk about, that happened in our country, and people are feeding. How do you not feed into what you're seeing online? Or do you want to take a different path and educate people on it's fair to have your opinions, but also understand this, this, and this?
So I tell you what, your blessing becomes your curse. I made it part of my mantra and my mission. I do my very best to respond to everybody that reaches out to me as best I can. And what I mean by that is not because of popularity, but I take it very serious that, excuse me, number one, I'm still working, right? So that's to take priority. Number two, I have 4 children, which is my why. I say that all the time. So, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to not be distracted from those things. But that's the whole purpose of the show. And that's the whole purpose of me doing what I do throughout the country is I pray that by availability and by connection, with hopes of comprehension, we can connect. So I think availability is the key to that, right? And accessibility. So I don't feed into, I see stuff and people send me stuff, and I was already prepared for that. Oh, it's smiles fake, or can't stand the way he wears his beard, and I don't like the way he sits in the chair. And you know what I often say to that, and I posted about it today, obviously because of what happened yesterday. And I say, man, if people would just stay in their lane in terms of just stick with what you like. If you don't like something, you have every right not to like it. If you don't support something, you have every right not to support it. But I always laugh like if we said Pepsi and Coke, right, and you said, well, I'm a Pepsi guy. Well, would every day would you take a sip of Coke just to remind yourself how much you hate it? Like just that you just wouldn't drink the Coke, man. So it's like, so I always like laugh at that stuff. I'm like, man, if I'm not your flavor, that's all good. I'm okay with that. But I just, for me, accessibility and availability is key. So I kind of, to answer your question, I do engage, but I don't engage as far as, sticks and stones may break my bones. I engage more of like, hey, cool, I didn't look at it like that. Did you ever look at it like this though? So that type of thing.
Your post that you made today, promote what you love instead of bashing what you hate, which I think it's perfect. And yeah, I don't want to dive too deep because I'm not number one politically intelligent. But I do think, no matter where anyone who watches this stands on their side of politics, the fact of the matter is, number one, a person in leadership that at one point ran our country
Yeah,
was nearly assassinated, and we were
yeah.
7 meters away from that. If you just take the name out and you take the party out, just that is a human being, and I think
But
so.
Mike, but Mike, not to cut you off. See,
Yeah.
I don't even. I'm with you 1,000%. Number one, I don't do the politics thing either. What I was saying was take it where a stranger, a damn near kid, took that type of action, is now deceased, rightfully so, all based on what? Toxicity, vitriol, invective, and constant bashing that drove this person to do what he did. So why am I saying it? That's why I titled my post of everybody has a podium, you have a podcast, right? I'm on now doing a few different things where it has a wide range audience. That's cool. But before I had that, you know what I also had? A circle. And the more that you put out into that circle, I say this all the time. If you're not inspired by the people in your circle, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. And what I'm saying is more and more and more, the more you keep doing that, and nasty and nasty and nasty, like the first thing you see when you see me, oh, the smile is terrible, or this or that. Wow, whoa, 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 stop, man, stop. You see what you just did? Like, oh, no bueno. Just stick with the good.
Yeah.
If you don't like the page, turn the page. Because you see it has fallout. And I'm sorry, I think a lot of what we see and experience, especially in the field of public safety and society, can be avoided if we stop stirring the pot. I just do.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I think like I think what needs to be addressed is no matter where you fall politically, a human's life, two were taken, one
Yep.
being the suspect, and then an innocent bystander, while again a person in leadership was nearly taken. And the first thing we do, not me, but the first thing our society does in 2024 is conspiracy theories and
Yep.
social media and
Yep.
just negative, negative, negative. What if anything, because I don't know how bad, because I really haven't stepped outside today, but it feels like, for lack of a better term, a shitstorm is coming, around us here in the States. What would be your message to just everyone as a community to just listen? Very unfortunate incident, no matter where you fall, it's a human life. Multiple human lives have been affected by this. Let's do better instead of running to conspiracies and negativity.
Well, or like I said, that's the beautiful thing about voting, right? And choosing. You choose what you like. Beginning and the end of it.
Yeah.
I always laugh when I see debates. I'm not talking about this politically. I'm talking about anything, right? Always laugh, not comedically, ironically laugh at what are people to spend time doing, pointing the fingers of why you stink. Well, I have an idea. I'm just going to talk about why I think I'm doing okay. And that's it. I said this in the post today, if you are doing you and you're doing it well, the rest will fall out for itself. Don't worry about all that. Do you? Go ahead, rock on. I mean, I don't understand that. If you're spending the whole time when you're running a race looking at the person next to you, see how fast they're running, what's going to happen? You're going to lose the race, right?
Yeah.
So just it's you versus you. That's what I always put that in a lot of the stuff I put out there on social media. It's you versus you every day. You versus you. If you're worried about yourself, you versus you. That's where true nobility lies, is being superior to your former self. Right? That's it. It's the beginning and the end of it. So I preach this in law enforcement when I talk about giving press conferences and putting out public safety messages. Just tell the story. That's it. That's it. Start at chapter one, boom, 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 boom. If we just did that, I can see you got UFC posters behind you. Like I always say, people don't tune into a UFC fight and say, "Oh my God, did you see how many strikes they're wearing?" That it's the same thing with us. Like I say this all the time. Did you ever arrest somebody who didn't want to be arrested? Have you? Because I'm going to tell you right now. Sometimes that means you have to incorporate the uses of force, right? Was never ever meant in any book I've ever read, in any class I've ever been to, meant to look pretty. That's it. You don't have to jump into all these and we wrap and spiral downward. It always goes down. The conversations always go down, so I don't engage in them. I just don't.
No, and I respect that of you. I will say this one thing since you've come into like my personal life and seeing you on
Yeah.
patrol, I now make it a habit to look at your daily posts and my other favorite guy, Jocko Willing. So you and
That's
Jocko
my
are
man.
like
That's my
the
man.
two guys I wake up
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
like it's self accountability, right? And more
That's it.
positivity. That those two things I have grabbed from both of you guys, and just what the messages you put out there to the world. Because it's so much, it honestly is so much easier to be negative, hateful, and full of BS, you know? So, with that being said, I want to ask about just OPL in your opinion. It is important. You know, and we saw it on A&E for some time, and then obviously in 2019 and 2020, things in the entire world got very bad. But
Yep.
this platform and just the documentary style that is out there for the world to see. How important, as someone who is law enforcement like yourself, do you feel a show like OPL is to the world to show, hey, we're not always perfect, but we're not always the narrative that you may want to give us either?
So you touch my heart when you say it like that. Let me tell you, without being biased, because I'm a part of it, it's crucial. It's critical. Here's why. Even way, way, way before I was ever part of the show, I always said, growing up, would watch Cops, and I always liked that part of it. But you know what I always said, and a lot, I'm not special. Excuse me, a lot of people in my industry would say this. What Cops is missing is the dialogue to explain to people, why do they do this? Why don't they do that? Right. So, what I love about the show is the ability to explain. I think where we are missing a critical piece in law enforcement, and you see this without shows like this, and again, not being biased, is we don't have, I guess I would say, effective communication skills, not when it, yes, in terms of in the streets, oftentimes that leads to bad things. Yeah. But what I'm talking about more so is then when have you ever seen these press conferences and I see leaders, people in leadership positions, and they are fumbling for words. And then it always turns to what's the easy way out? Take our own and sacrificial lambs and throw them under the bus, where man, I'm not special. I just started my 24th year. I've been around a long time, and I could tell you, I follow a simple rule, and I tell people this throughout the country. I treat my guys and my girls like I would want to be treated if I was the one that, was in that critical incident. It's just that simple. And you know how I'd want to be treated? Just please tell the whole story. That's it. Just tell the whole story. Please expose. We give way more warnings than we do tickets. We let way more people go and don't do that again than put handcuffs on them. Every police officer, Mike, I say this to you with pride and with humility. I have 1,000 criminal apprehensions in my career. Okay. I hold department. What I'm going to tell you is me and thousands of other police officers throughout this country would love to make an arrest where the person puts the handcuff on themselves. Okay. I would admit this to you. I don't care if I'm on a podcast or we're sitting at a bar together. I've never been part of a briefing where we come, okay, let's bring it in the middle. Okay, let's go kill somebody today. Let's go hurt somebody today. It doesn't happen. We don't want it. Are we able to employ those things if we had to? Yes. But what I'm saying is the show is critical for us to say, hey, that's why the person did that. What I hope it also exposes is we give what we get, and I hope you see a theme when you see it's not staged. So what do you normally see when you see the police encounter somebody, loud party, crime, motor vehicle stop, and the person is, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I screwed up today. You notice how it kind of goes one way. But then when you see the police officers come up on somebody and what? I'm not getting out of the car. I'm going to run. I'm going to fight. I'm going to put my phone in your face. I'm going to sit there and piss and moan and scream and yell. Well, what? Guess what, Mike? This is going to shock you, right? I'm Tom before I go to work. Then I put this monkey suit on, I'm Tom. And you know what happens when I get off of work? I'm Tom. And you know what really gets Tom mad? What gets 99% of the public mad? So I say this all the time: you can't have it both ways. Everybody in this world, this American world of policing and society wants what for public safety? They want us to connect and they want us to treat people like human beings and this, that, and the other. Well, then the first step in that is realizing that the actors are human beings too.
Yep. Yep.
Fair?
Yeah, 100% fair. That is the number one reason. Well, there's many reasons, but one of the number one reasons why I wanted to have you on is because you're not just a very intelligent law enforcement man on TV. You're a person, and I wanted an opportunity to meet Captain Tom Rizzo, the person, and have the world,
Tom,
you
no
know.
captain, man. Tom.
But
I
even so, that was one. That was actually going to be my next question: is how much enjoyment do you have? I just told you off camera, my girlfriend and I, we enjoy not only every weekend, we're calling out our favorite cops in each department. We're like, we talk all the time. We're in Southwest Missouri. We're like, hey,
yeah,
one day we just need to go to Hazen. We'll take the
that's it.
4 hour
Yeah,
trip,
yeah.
just because there's oftentimes, especially I'm 32, oftentimes everyone around my age has a certain narrative or they had a run in and one encounter ruined
Yeah.
everything. But
Me too.
at the
Me
same point,
too.
you're right.
Me
At the
too.
same point, you're also human. So law enforcement officials are allowed to feel the same way because one encounter, and we just saw that on patrol in the last 2 weeks. A man was pulled over in Florida. He gave lip and then took off reckless driving, got arrested 2 weeks later. He's back in the same situation.
That's
I
it.
mean, everyone is a person, and that is to me. I love everything that you explained about OPL, but I wanted to hear how much you get the enjoyment out of allowing the world to see it's not just the uniform; they're
I love it.
people.
But again, I see selfishly, I already had where I was out throughout the country. So I should reveal to you, right? Everywhere I go, I go to the hotspots. That's my favorite. So I've been to Minneapolis several times, Chicago. I go to the hot Kenosha, Ferguson. I go to the hotspots that the news and the media puts out there, and I walk the streets like a human, not as a cop. You wouldn't know I was a cop. And I love to engage. And the college classes I teach, I don't tell my students I'm a police officer till the end of the semester. I don't teach criminal justice classes. So why do you think I'm doing that? I'm so sick and tired that people, this is the ultimate hypocrisy to me, the ultimate contradiction. You don't want to be seen for an outward stereotypical something, right? So I don't care whether it's race, creed, color, religion, behavior, type of car. People get absurd over that, where they say they're judging me for this. Well, the same thing. So I'm wearing a badge, or I'm wearing an outer vest carrier, or I'm wearing a uniform. So I don't want you to see, I want you to see it as an authority in terms of not a power trip, but for you to recognize I'm here to protect you. I'm here to serve the public. I'm here to make sure that you abide by the law. Yeah. But you know what I want you to see? I have eyes, I have a nose, I have ears, I have a brain, I have a heart, right? So the reason why do I say that, man? Because the human senses are the human senses. A uniform doesn't numb them, doesn't dull them. So I said, I did this once, sarcastically. We had, these people when it started really to get popular and go viral with people shoving phones in our faces. So once we got everything under control, it was a hot, heavy arrest. I walked over to this one guy who was really being a menace. And I went, he thought I was going to hit him. I said, I'm not going to hit you. So I'm just going to, he goes, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm just putting my phone in you. I want to film you too. So he's staring at me and he's like, you can't do that. I said, see, so why do you have a problem with what I'm doing right now? He's like, well, it makes me uncomfortable. I said, so how is it not supposed to make me uncomfortable? And he's just staring at me. I said, I know you want to catch us doing something. You want to make sure you see we're wearing a VCR style thing on us, right? In the cars, there's a camera. I mean, every perspective of what we do, it's monitored. But you feel the clip you're going to get on your cell phone is going to do it. And I'm fine with it. But what I always laugh at, and again, not ha ha funny, but if you catch a cop in an emotional moment, say, hey, move the F back because I'm just losing my cool, just like you did. I'm crazy. I deserve to get in trouble. It's like, man, it really bothers me. And you know why? That's where, and I'm not forgiving us for this, but that's why you see cops become so cynical and not be able to connect on the human element because we're so guarded and so jaded at everything we do. If I burp, if I fart, I get in trouble. If you do it, it's just, well, I had gas. So it's like, well, And it's not about being held to a higher standard, that whole debate. I'm not going into that. I'm saying humans. If you allow, I say this all the time, Mike, throughout the country, West Coast, North, West to East, North to South. If you let cops be human damn beings, watch this problem get fixed. I know it. I
I
know it in my heart.
I'm with you 100% on that. I think one thing, and we talked about this while we were setting up the interview, you could see someone in a Rolls Royce and be like, wow, they must be doing so well for themselves.
Sure.
But you're not inside the four walls they have in their home.
Nope.
You're not even inside these two walls in their head.
Nope.
And
Nope.
that is something to transition into that. One thing we're seeing a lot more, but one thing we're not seeing enough of is the respect of mental health towards law enforcement,
Yeah.
specifically men in law enforcement, men in general. I told you, privately, my family was affected by it now here just about a week ago with someone in New York, and it's devastated like my, entire family and the
Yeah.
direct family. How much of everything that you do you want not just the country but the world to realize not only are they human, but mental health is a real thing, and men's
Yes.
mental health is especially important.
Well, I mean, I don't care if it's on this podcast or on one of my classes on a television screen. I lost two of my very closest friends at 14 to suicide. I lost a work colleague to suicide by cop by his own department. And I tell this throughout the country. I myself suffered from definitely depression, anxiety, stress. No, I never attempted suicide, but I know what it's like to be have the dark screaming while the light seems to be whispering. So it's everything. The mistake that we make, and I love and respect the private sector and the mental health advocates and the EAP programs. It's like an employee assistance program that we have, resiliency centers, all sorts of peer-to-peer groups. I respect the hell out of them, but I think the focus is in the wrong place. They point the needle as to it's the stress of the job, meaning the stuff that we see and experience in the streets. And I'm not negating the importance of critical incident debriefs for high profile events. I'm not going to sit there and say that's not important. But what I can tell you happens 1000% more is the stuff that happens within our buildings that we do to each other, and the cannibalism and the throwing each other under the bus and these slogans, and especially leadership positions that want to make themselves popular by subscribing to some of these ridiculous claims and throwing their own folks under the bus. That has been the number one attack on mental health for men and women in the policing industry, no doubt about it. And I think if we don't start to take that serious, so what I try to practice what I preach, and what that is I could see anybody in the street, I could see anybody in my professional or my personal capacity, and I can instantly empathize. Empathy for me is everything, and the way I do it is with the five senses that I was born with. I don't have to look like you when we look in the mirror, but if I see you struggling with a certain perspective of your life, what I do is I could close my eyes and I could see that similar moment that I've experienced. And I instantly then kind of telepath myself into what that felt like for me. And that's how I connect with people. So I say this, we could do this for brother and sister police officers, but we could also do it for the people that we protect and serve on the streets. But I'm the biggest advocate in wholesome relationships. You said you have your girlfriend, and it warms my heart to hear that you're in a relationship, and hopefully a supportive relationship. I think relationships is what I think could either build us up or break us down. Unfortunately, I almost made it, to the finish line, almost 20 years married. That was the toughest, thing that's ever happened to me in my life, is seeing that broken. And I know that's because I was a broken version of myself. So that's why I embrace my hypocrisy, because the things I pray that other people will do, I openly say, hey, listen, I wish somebody would have went like this to me and woke me up and told me to do this sooner. So um I know with my vulnerability, I open myself up for criticism and for all sorts of stones being thrown. But my attitude is, me at 100% would be awesome. But if I could take 100 people and improve them 1%, that would be a movement. So that's my goal.
I definitely feel I'm improving just by listening to you talk. And you're right. I mean, I'll say this openly. I've never said this, but having a comfort level with you, I'll say this publicly on this podcast. I was a broken soul for 4 years after losing my
Yeah.
best friend. I was in horrible relationships where I don't even recognize that person, but I also didn't recognize who I was allowing myself to be with. Now, here in 2024, things aren't perfect on my end, but I'm very much a lot happier with where I am with someone by my side. Like you said, that support
Yeah,
system. So, it was not just a battle of relationships, it was a battle of my personal mental health. So I
yeah.
appreciate you, sharing that. But I want to throw this kind of example out there. If a young man or woman in law enforcement came up to you and said, my family, 2 generations has been in law enforcement, but I've always struggled with mental health. I'm just starting out as a police officer. What would be your biggest advice if I wanted to be open about it, but I'm afraid of getting made fun of or having, people come at me for it?
So, the stigma has definitely been reduced as to, I hate to use terms like when I first started. So that's been reduced. They're proponents of it. The problem is that they don't know what they're proponents of. So, and again, it's the blind leading the blind in that regard. And what I'm saying is everybody will sit there and you'll have a hallway full of experts. If heaven forbid we get involved in a shooting, let's say, right? You'll have a hallway experts, everybody there ready to debrief. If we have to deal with a scene where a child is killed tragically, we have a hallway of people there for that. But if I were to say to you, hey, we're working in a toxic environment and it's got my stomach in a knot every time I come through here, that's where everybody just goes, you're just being, that's where we're not. And it's like addiction, right? What's the first thing you have to do is admit that you have a problem. We don't have a recruitment problem in this, industry. We have a retention problem and a retention of the culture that it was meant to be. And what's that? A family environment, supportive, and all that. So that's what I would say. It's got to be you become your environment. I don't care how resilient you are. So I would say environment is everything. There's no dollar, there's no schedule, there's no piece of equipment that I would say to a young officer that should keep you in a toxic environment. It will inevitably consume you and then get you to, like I said, believe the dark. And that's what I don't want to see happen anymore.
Well, that's beautifully put. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I want to give you the opportunity to talk about Ivory Tower and just
Yeah.
everything that is behind that. If you can kind of just let the world know more about it and why it is so important to you.
So it's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg. So I was a graduate of the Command and Leadership Academy, which up here in the Northeast is based upon a junior level semester course at West Point. And I was fortunate enough that they invited me back to be an instructor because I did well enough in the class. And I was only a sergeant at the time. But I fell in love with the theory that the military teaches of transformational leadership. So it's not the transactions, like that's being a boss. Transformational leadership is taking and you affect the environment. You don't let the environment affect you. So I just took that and I started to run with it. And it started to metastasize where I was like, make something of this in terms of kind of tweak it into my own way. Which then came the book Kamikaze, and I said, "This is like the same thing as a kamikaze. We're signing up literally, knowing we're going to crash, and nobody's doing anything about it. So I'm sick and tired of it. My whole thing is, I always say, right, don't just be a squeaky wheel. Offer a solution. If people don't like it, that's fine. That's what I meant before. I said I have thick skin. So Ivory Tower is obviously a symbol of as we ascend, not just in rank, oftentimes in rank, but as we get older and do whatever, we separate. And I don't like that. I like remaining connected. So the whole premise was transformational leadership course that shows you how you could be the best version of yourself, mental, physical, overall wellness, and that you could see and get the best out of other people. But I incorporated relationships. So anybody that comes to the class, you could bring your spouse, you can bring your significant other because I open up with my vulnerability and say, look, this is how easy that you could fail. I don't have a sexy story on, what you see, one of these, situations where it's like some type of salacious affair or some type of substance abuse issue. I wish I had something like that where people would say, oh man, yeah, I know somebody like that. I just say I didn't manage things the right way. And the worst part about it was I didn't have somebody to knock me upside the head and say, hey, you're gonna screw this up. The people in your arena, your VIP seats should be the VIPs in your life, not the other way around. So I've made it my mission. The TV show was a blessing. I never imagined in my wildest dreams something like that would happen. And then again, it affords me opportunities to meet with people like you. But that's where it's at, man. I firmly believe everybody in this world has a passion. You just have to match it to a purpose. So that's what I'm doing right now. You said it before. You were in a bad spot. That's going to be my next tattoos is perfectly imperfect. And I've come to peace with that. I've recognized there's no way I'll ever be able to love somebody until I learn how to love myself. And that's okay. I don't have to feel guilty about that. I say I got wrinkles, I got gray, people don't like the way I smile or whatever it is that you want to say. I'm good with it, man. If for somebody else to take out their frustrations on me, if it helps them feel better, I'm good with it. Not that I'm some type of hero, man, but I just don't. I guess what I'm saying is, and I'll wrap it like this: is I want to help people. I don't want to ever see somebody feel like I felt. Um, so if I could do that, whether it's through the lens of a camera, whether it's through a bro or a sis hug, or even if it's through an arrest while I still have some time left on the shelf. I just believe in affecting my environment, not letting my environment affect me.
I think that's beautiful, and I commend you on all of that. Again, I wish I would have known about who you were sooner and not just had OPL bring you to the light, because I feel like just your mindset and your thought process is so important, not just for those in law enforcement, but all of us here in the country. So I'm hoping, those that do get to see this, feel this, and everything that we're saying. But we've had a very, very heavy conversation. And
Yeah,
I know you like to have a fun time as well. So I'm just a
yeah.
couple fun ones. I got to ask this. How, how tough is it to keep in character and not break loose when Dan Abrams drops his punny jokes during,
Dude,
during
that cat, he's cerebral, man, and you have no idea. And he keeps a poker face when he says it. And I'm like, first of all, I'm envious because he gets away with it. I was like, how did this guy just get away with that? Like I'm like my tongue, I feel like a shock collar because I'm like, I want to say something so bad. But man, that guy, he gets a lot of heat, that dude, but he's a pro's pro, man. He's this. He was getting a lot of heat about, hey, aren't you going to say anything about what happened? And he's like, listen, this is the beauty of it, right? It's a documentary show. It's supposed to be about live interactions that the police are having. I'm not, he goes, I'm a human damn being. People want to say, I like this guy, I don't like that guy. He goes, of course, there would be a time and a place, but it's not on the show. Because I asked when I first came on, I said, why don't we do stuff about police officer that shot or this or that? And they said, because we would inevitably let someone down where you would say, well, you did it about Mike, you did it about Tom. Why didn't you do it about Jim? So it just takes a lot of learning, but that guy is hysterical though. And it's like that dry, cutty, like he cuts you with his humor. But like sometimes I'm like, I'm out because some of the stuff he says, but he keeps a straight face. I'm like, oh my
Yep.
God. Yeah,
My
yeah.
favorite is when officers around the country find sex toys, and it's either directed
No,
at you, but mainly Curtis Wilson. He gets
yeah.
it the worst, and you're just sitting there holding your composure. And I'm like, I'd lose it. I'd walk off set. I'm like, I can't do it. I can't
Oh,
do it.
well, there's been a couple where I'm like, I can't, you gotta have to give me another minute, man, because I said I'm not ready yet. I'm bright red and I'm sitting there cracking up laughing. And I'm glad you pick up on that. People want to say all they want to say, and it's all good because I gotta say, overwhelmingly, I've been so blessed. People like you, like with the support. But the reason why you see what you see with me is because I do believe humor breaks down barriers. So I think smiles are contagious. I think why wouldn't do you want somebody being on there looking like, with a flat top and rocking a mustache and wearing the Oakleys and being like Judge Dredd, or do you want to see the human side of it?
Right, and I think you guys all do a fantastic job in showcasing that. One last thing, I know I don't have a lot from people following me from it, but OP Nation is incredibly large. What has been
Yeah.
your favorite thing about connecting with just the nation? Because yeah, there, like we said to open this, there's going to be plenty of criticism and people online,
Yeah.
but the amount of people who are like, I've got, my baton and my, my walkie, and my dog's got his badge on, and we're sitting down for 3 hours. It's like, wait, what? And the nation
It's
goes all out.
dude, it's wild. But you know what it does? Two things, right? It's like I guess a dual effect on me. selfishly for me, I'm like, this is wild, right? I'm meeting people, I'm engaging with people that I know I would have never had the opportunity to do otherwise, right? So selfishly, I'm like, how blessed am I to be able to talk to people from across the country? Some of them are out of even the country, global, that have reached out. And I'm like, this is crazy, right? But then industry wise, right? Because I still love my industry. So for me, I'm like, how cool is that we do? Because now wherever I go, where I deal with like cynical, crusty cops that are like, oh, forget it, the job's did it. I'm like, you have no idea, man. Look at all this stuff. People absolutely are supporting us, absolutely saying, go out there and get it. We love, Officer so and so. We love XYZ Police Department. I'm like, see, people do. They just want to be let in. That's it. Not about ice cream giveaways, not about, dance offs, just to be let in. And I think that I am so overwhelmed with the support, overwhelmed.
And last one for me, and I want to, thank you for all your time. You're not
Yeah, man.
going anywhere for the foreseeable future, right? We've got you on the OPL for quite some time, right?
I don't know. We'll see. So we'll see.
Well,
I'm getting close. I don't want to admit this, but I'm not old. I'm ripe. But the window's closing on my full-time career. So it would to fill that seat. I gotta say, I know Sean. We have common acquaintances, especially Sean's a cop, man. That dude, he put his work in. I could tell you this much. That's a legit street cop right there. And he has nothing but my admiration and my respect. And we're friends. We talk. I said, listen, if this means that your time's over, I would pray that you could pass the baton and that I would be able to not fill your shoes, but just fulfill what the role is, right? Because we're different people and we have different backgrounds, but we have such a mutual respect for each other. So short answer turned long is it would be a dream come true. I'm doing everything I can, and I'm hoping with support like people like you and your girl that it helps to get me past the finish line. So it would be a dream come true. That's my goal is to land in that seat. How's that?
I love it. I love it. Well, you talk about two men I want to have drinks with: Tom Rizzo, Sean Larkin, and Bradley Taylor could drive us there. But Tom Rizzo
Yeah,
on Instagram, thomasrizzo.com for all things related to all that you're doing.
yeah.
Anything else that you want to shout out and let people know where they can find you or anything like that?
Well, like I said, my Instagram and Facebook is cool, but Instagram at Tom Rizzo 70. I do a lot of content there. I'll be doing more with some video content that we're gonna be filming and stuff. But no, what I want people to know, and I know this might sound cheesy, might not sound genuine to some. I will say this from the most intimate parts of my being and the tiniest corners of my heart. When I tell you, even again, things like this, you have no idea what it does to me. Every day for me is a struggle, and I know people don't see that because they see me smiling. If they only knew what it took to get me to adorn a smile compared to let some of the inside take over, right? So I openly admit my daily struggles. I choose happiness. I choose a smile. And this helps to fuel the engine for me to do just that when I reach those crossroads. So instead of whenever anybody reaches out and says, "Oh, thank you" to me, I switch the needle right around and say, "No, no, no, my man Mike, thank your girl, because if you guys only knew." So I don't have any problems letting people in on these conversations about me, but I'm saying if people like you only knew how much you mean to me. So thank you.
That means a lot. Thank you so much. Hopefully, we get to reconnect in the future, and
Yeah,
you've
man.
got not only a a fan here, but someone who truly understands and respects. And I'll say this before we turn off the recording. Thank you, because going through it wasn't even my direct family; it was just my aunt's best friend's brother-in-law, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and was in NYPD, and it hurt, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to feel, because it's not direct family, but they are family. And just because I have so much respect and admiration for those who do the job. So you definitely helped, get through knowing that I was going to be able to have this conversation with you. It was definitely empowering. So thank you.
Anytime, brother. It's my pleasure.